Welcome to Magetalk, episode God knows which one.
I think it's 240. I think it might
Episode
be 240.
So this is you podcasting roughly 10 full days of content. This is the 240th
240. It is 240.
podcast.
Yeah.
Roughly an hour each episode. So anyone listening to all of the episodes has listened to you for 10 days.
Yep. It's
Where was I?
pretty cool.
I was somewhere not too long ago, and someone said to me, like, by the way, I listened to all of the episodes of Magetalk. So
I hear that sometimes, and I'm like, there's no way. There's honestly no. Alessandro told me that recently. Ronki. And I was like, come on, dude. That's not real. There's no way. But
yeah,
podcasts are weird like that, where sometimes you have it in your feed and you don't necessarily remove it. It just sits there, but it doesn't really bother you, even if it's inactive for a while. And then
but Magetalk was always different. Like, no matter what, I always listened to Magetalk. It was good times. Good times. I hope I can live up to maybe half of the expectations that people would have putting up a Magetalk episode.
We'll see.
And,
the jury's out. The jury's out on that. I don't know if you know what a jury is out there in the Netherlands, but I think the jury is still out. Do you guys have juries? Honest question. I honestly don't know. Do you have juries?
we have
or is
judges.
there just one person? There's a judge. They say this is what's happening.
Yeah, and sometimes I know very little about this, but I think usually it's in important cases there might be 2 or 3 judges that cast a verdict together. But it's no jury duty, everything. Like if I watch a movie and it's about jury duty in the US, it's something completely unknown to us.
Unbelievable. Well,
it's the same as whenever we look at a presidential election in the US, it's like we understand half of what happens there, and it's like
all right.
We have the Netherlands, we have a national vote. It's a one-time vote.
I see where this is going, Willem. And let me just say that I feel sorry for you that you don't have jury duty, and which is an excellent transition into the Magento Association, which is really all that we ever want to talk about. Now,
that is my jury duty.
That is your jury duty. That is your jury duty.
I go in there, I tell everyone what I think, I cast my judgment. Like, that's where I can shine in my judgmentality for an hour straight, and then I go back to my community tasks where I'm just always the friendly neighborhood guy, telling other people to be more nice.
You have this friendly neighborhood, this act. You have it down to a science. I never knew.
If you're consistent, is it an act? If it's consistent and it's your best will and intention to make people feel welcome in a community and not be rough on them.
No, it's still an act. If it's an act, it's an act. Willem,
but I mean,
you're a damn
if we're going
Viking.
Down that road,
you want to walk around, chop heads off, and take them home and put them on your mantle. That's who you are.
Should we talk about your profanity in chat then?
That's who you are, Willem. It's who you are. We can talk about it. I'm beginning to let the profanity a bit more loose. I talked to a friend of mine recently, and who I never we went to church together for years and stuff like that. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I kind of curse now. And anyway, it was
the Lord's name in vain.
It was a challenging moment. It was a challenging conversation for me. Did you see the thing?
Smoothly evaded, brother. Smoothly evaded the question.
Did you see, Matthias? Did you see the thing? I just saw it like 3.5 seconds ago in Slack.
So here's so this is what
You've been aware.
What's
You've
funny.
obviously been aware. You've obviously been aware of this.
So Matthias Schreiber, he was the CEO of the Type of Free Foundation or organization. He just made a move to become the new CEO of the Magento Association. So obviously, as a board member, I know this was all organized on very short notice over the past 3 weeks, maybe, where it's coincided that Smith Bucklin and the MA no longer wanted to continue that structure. So that's kind of mutual. And Matthias reached out to the MA board saying, like, I'm ready for something new, and I see the challenge in the Magento community. He was at Poland where we had this open source discussion panel at Meet Magento Poland, and since then a lot of us have been in contact with him for advice and just like brainstorming about whatever's happening.
Playing
in the
the
Magento
long
community.
game. He's been playing the long game for quite some time now. As I think this year, I was like, what is this guy doing? What is his deal? Why is he getting involved? And now in hindsight, you go, I see he was worming his way into our lives slowly but surely.
I think we should have bagged him to come, because he's like the most like it's very coincidental that at the same time he was looking for something new and we needed someone, but there's no one more qualified for that role than he is, because he's been doing this for a decade in the Type of Free world.
Yeah.
So
no.
He's been in this exact position. But
it's pretty wild.
Fun fact. So not even a week ago, we had the final board votes to make him CEO. And today we had set a meeting to announce this to all of the Magento Association committee members. So everyone that's actively working on a committee in the MA, and they would get like they got the sneak peek, like they got the premiere of the update that Matthias would become CEO. And tomorrow a newsletter and social media posts were supposed to go out. And then we started the meeting, and while we started it, I got tweeted and messaged all of these screenshots that this announcement was on LinkedIn. So someone wrongly scheduled the post for today instead of tomorrow. So
that's funny.
So while the announcement was being made to the select group of committee members, they were saying, "Yeah, you've got the snoop. Like you're the first, the scoop. You're the first to hear." And it's like, well, actually, I just got notified that a lot of people already know because it's on LinkedIn.
This is why I refuse to join these committees, because they're all fake. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But no, it's a real interesting deal. So is he replacing Smith Bucklin then? With I don't even understand exactly what that means, but I think that's freaking amazing. That's really interesting.
So it's easy to underestimate how much Smith Bucklin does currently still.
Say that again.
So there's a lot of all of the legal and tax and financial stuff alone is a handful. And then there's a couple of people from Smith Bucklin that attend all of the meetings with the committees and the board members and they write up all of the notes of the meetings afterwards, the minutes. So there's quite some work being done there, but they never, because they're not part of the organization. They are hired to run the processes of the MA. They've never been this much engaged that they could really act on behalf of the MA, so to say. So the idea is that Matthias would really take on a role where he goes to all of the events and he becomes a public figure attached to the MA. And if you got something to complain, you address it to him, and he tells you why you're wrong or why you're right and what we're working on. And that's always like, Smith Bucklin always has been like a fenced, very, very shielded off organization where we had no clue. Now still on the board, I don't know who at Smith Bucklin is doing what for the MA.
Right.
I'm sure Joshua and Slava and Danny know a lot more about it, especially being on the board for 4 years already. But me, after a couple of months, I still don't know what's happening in the background there. So yeah, it's going to be good that Matthias is going to be that person that just does everything hands-on. He will attend all of the meetings and try to push things forward.
Right.
Gonna be interesting though. Yeah, go.
I just realized as I started talking crap about the association and things like that, that I'm just so tired of it. You know what I mean? I'm just so sick of complaining about it. We should talk about cool stuff that the community's building. Let's just talk about stuff that's being built, right? Let's talk about.
So I got loads of rants queued up, and you don't want to hear them because that's what makes Philip listen. The hot takes.
Let's try. We can try one.
Do you want to lose Philip as a listener? Maybe if we do it well, he will post a review on Apple Podcast.
If I have to say the word association one more time, I am going to lose my mind. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to just switch my headphones, but go ahead. Let's hear the rant. Let's cue it up.
I don't know. It's up to you. We can do the rant next week. I will save the scoop. Something.
No, go for it, man. I'll interrupt you. I'll interrupt you midstream if it's too much. I kept seeing like things that people were building in the Slack, and I kept going like, oh yeah, we should talk about that, and let's talk about that. But I'm blanking on all of that stuff right now. I can't really think of anything top of my head. But I was just thinking it'd be fun to talk about cool stuff that the community's building. But yeah, I mean, whatever's top of mind for you, man. Jump into it, and we'll have a grand old time, I'm sure.
To be honest, as you know, I've been kind of sick for the past 2 weeks. So I'm low in energy, also low focus. I've got so much. I've got a lot of ammunition to rant about.
The viewers are seeing us. The viewers are seeing us at our worst right now because we're both sick. You're much sicker than I am. We haven't done this in a couple weeks. Our rhythm is off. Our timing is off. We don't have a doc. Okay. Philip called us out on Twitter, which kicked us off to the recording. So we're gonna see. This is like Michael Jordan when he's sick and he's playing that game. When he's like super sick, but he comes in, he scores 57 points in one game. That's the opportunity that we have before us today. You know,
I'm ready.
So
I'm ready.
Let's see what we can.
I'm
do.
up for it. Okay.
Let's see what we can do.
So some cool stuff coming up next week. We have Meet Commerce Madrid. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, that should be fun.
A whole lot of people are going to be there from the Magento community, but also ex-Magento community. So going to meet up with a lot of old friends. So that's going to be really cool. What I want to highlight there is that MageOs will have a marketplace stand. So for the first time, they will be there to inform people on what the mission of MageOs is. Vinay and John Yu will have a presentation on the goals of MageOs. And I think right now, more than ever, it's important that we get more of the message about MageOs out to explain.
I realized the thing that I needed to ask you, which is, weren't you going to do this whole? Were you going to like leave the association and do this whole thing where all the branding was moving over to MageOs and stuff like that?
That's part of the rant. It's part of the rant that I'm building up to.
Oh yeah, we got to get. Yeah, we got. Okay. Because that was something I was kind of interested in, because I think it is an interesting question whether we just go all in on MageOs.
I am, but at the meantime, the Magento brand is too valuable to let go of. At least right now, like Magento and the Hexagon is what our businesses are built on. And how I see it, in the next year, we have to move the needle and allow people to make a switch from Magento to MageOs, have an actual platform there, have an actual product there that's actively maintained, that has an organization behind it, that stands for the product, that's marketing it, that's addressing merchant needs, and help agencies to sell what is Magento today, but will be called MageOs tomorrow. And here comes my part of the rant. I'm on the MA because I think whatever we can do to better communicate what Magento is today is necessary that we do. It's getting harder and harder to do this because Adobe just really doesn't want too much Magento branding out there. And we've been screaming that we need more information about Magento. Magento.com needs to be, or Magento.org needs to be a website with merchant information and a content hub where people can learn about Magento. And I've been in a process for over 12 months as well. If people listen to the previous episodes, I've been making arguments why it's so important that we have branding around Magento for the continuation of our ecosystem, community, and our businesses. And Adobe has been listening to all of that feedback. And in their response, they now have a new branding guideline that's about to be published. It was shared with the MA board with a message from Ritesh, who said it's now ready to make public and be shared with the community. So I'm assuming that when he said that it's now ready to be shared. Going forward, starting now, or I guess January, Adobe will refer to Magento as Magento open source, the unsupported code base that Adobe contributes to. Let that sink in. So you have Adobe Commerce, the product, the e-commerce product and platform, and Magento will henceforward be called Magento open source only. So you're only allowed to call it Magento open source. So if you're a partner agency, if you're a partner of Adobe, and you're actively selling Adobe Commerce licenses, you will get this branding guideline. They will tell you on your website, you're not allowed to call it the company Magento or the product Magento. You're not even allowed to call it a product anymore because it says specifically in the brand guidelines, it's a code base that's unsupported and Adobe contributes to it. So they're devaluating the brand as much as possible. And they want a clear separation of what Adobe Commerce is and what Magento open source is. They're going to demand that any partner that signs an agreement with them communicates this consistently. And the whole thing is based on fear or just the fact that they can't see the commercial value of open source towards Adobe Commerce. So the whole ecosystem, the agencies, everything is just thrown in the bin.
So where do you see the Magento Association and like Matthias, where do you see that factoring in to this?
So
because that feels like a good move. That feels like a strong move. Like things are going in the right direction. Like very much so in the right direction. Although, who knows exactly what power he'll have, or the Association General will have to do anything. But how do you see that factoring?
Another thing, and I have to be cautious that I don't cross any boundaries of what I am and am not allowed to share. But at this time,
don't be cautious.
At this time. There's a new draft for the agreement with the MA and Adobe for next year. And I think the terms that are currently on the table are seriously incapacitating the MA to efficiently. You can see from the agreements that they wrote up that they're not too keen on us building up a brand around Magento. So I envisioned with the MA, we can take over the role of communicating what Magento is and properly market it to merchants and agencies. And it looks like together, along with the new branding guidelines, that they will also force on the MA to say, like in the guidelines, it says specifically, like if you talk about Magento open source, you need to explicitly say that it's only for really small merchants, SMB, and there's some requirements in the communication that they will also tell the MA to put into their communication. And there's some other things that make it really difficult for the MA to secure more funding, to become more independent. And we've been advocating for, like, I wrote a letter to the MA before I became a board member, telling them, like, you need to become independent of Adobe, because, like, we need an organization that stands for the community and make sure that we still have this product that's being marketed in upcoming years. And because I wasn't sure how much of that would work out, we started MageOs. And a lot of things started to improve at the MA. So the board elections and I think they started to communicate more transparently. The change now to Matthias as CEO would be a really positive one. But the question is, how much will Adobe still allow us to build out the MA and be successful? Because the MA being successful would mean that they're trying to really position Adobe Commerce as the primary choice for a serious merchant. And if you're serious, serious about your business, you shouldn't go with Magento open source. That's the narrative that they're trying to put out there. And that's a narrative that I totally do not agree with. And I see with Huva that there's so many merchants that are definitely not in the lower end of the market. We see bigger and bigger and bigger stores going with Magento open source or with Adobe Commerce, but built on the monolith with Huva. And we're growing really faster. We're doing really well. But Adobe would rather not see too many people continuing to use open source, because any mid-market or upmarket merchant using Magento open source, to them looks as a lost opportunity to sell them a license for commerce. And yeah, we've tried with multiple people for a long time to try and find a business case for them where they see and understand where you could sell the commerce features like Sensei, Smart Search, and product recommendations. You could sell that to open source users as an add-on. And the marketplace brings some revenue. Agencies are really helped if they can work with one platform and tailor it to either Adobe Commerce users. So if they have a merchant that does 200 million a year, they put them on Adobe Commerce. If they have a merchant that does 10 million a year, they put them on open source. And for an agency, that means they can specialize on one code base and serve both of those customers. And if you're taking away the open source, that means that they need to specialize in another platform, which means they need to split out the development teams and the knowledge, and that's besides that, like starting agency, no one starts. The entry point is not Adobe Commerce. If you're a bunch of students that starts an agency, you say we're going to build e-commerce sites. Magento always has been the playground where you build something for a smaller merchant, and you can fail because there's not so much on the line. There's no high stakes there. So you learn, and once you grow, and professionalize, you might be able to take on Adobe Commerce projects as well. So that's something you grow into. And I mean, and I can go on for another hour explaining what I think the value of community and open source would be to Adobe, but they definitely decided now that they're not interested in that. They want to target the high-end market, and open source is a distraction, and they keep telling us like we're here for the community, and they still do things like that, but in the meantime, commercially, marketing-wise, communication-wise, they will keep communicating that Magento is not a viable solution for merchants, and that's just super hurtful. They could have chosen to say, instead of the unsupported code base, they could have said the community-supported code base. Would have sounded entirely different already.
Well, okay, question. Because I was thinking about this the other day as I was just doing a post, and I was going to use the term Magento community. And then I was thinking, well, if you really want to go all in on MageOs as the new brand, then you want to stop saying Magento essentially, and you want to start saying MageOs in reference to everything. So then I was trying to figure out how's that gonna work.
There's gonna need to be a transition where we start saying you can choose between Magento and MageOs, and at some point, MageOs will start to look different than Magento with different features, performance optimizations. It eventually will turn into a different product because it will evolve, and Magento will no longer evolve. They might patch it for newer PHP versions and keep it secure. And even though they say it's an unsupported code base that they contribute to, it's the code base that Adobe Commerce runs on. So you know for a fact that Magento will be supported for another 5 years at least, because Adobe Commerce customers are building, they're putting millions and millions in e-commerce builds right now built on the monolith. So they will keep supporting it because they have paying customers that need it. So there's no way they will drop support for Magento in the next 3 years. Definitely not. So it's the narrative that's super hurtful, and it's really confusing. How do you explain this to a merchant? Like, this is a great platform. It's the best. It's the most robust, flexible platform that you can use. But if you Google it, you might read that it's not supported, but that's nonsense because it is supported. Yeah. It just doesn't work. So our mission is to really ramp up marketing and brand awareness around MageOs. We're going to try and really put a trustworthy business in place there over the next 12 months. And someone asked me recently, we had a meetup, and someone said like, well, how am I going to convince a merchant today to switch to MageOs? And I had to explain to him that today there's no reason at all. Like today we're in a phase where we need agencies and extension developers to get on board and help us build up the platform and build up our own distribution and help us with all of those processes so that we can start building our own product there. And once we start adding our own distribution that will have some benefits, then it would become time to start talking to merchants and say, hey, you're asking for an e-commerce store. We could go with Magento, which is backed by Adobe, or we could go with MageOs, which has a different organization behind it. But there's a 10% performance improvement that comes with it. And there's a couple of new features, and it's actively maintained. So that proposition will change at some point. And I think an agency, probably for a long time, they will offer, much like an agency would now offer Magento or Adobe Commerce, they might offer free options, MageOs, Magento, or Adobe Commerce. And there will be benefits and some downsides to using MageOs.
I have to say the logo is popping. I keep looking at the logo on your hat, and it definitely pops, dude. I'm into it. Yeah, I'm into the logo. Yeah, that sounds good, man. I mean, makes sense. Kind of exhausted by all this stuff, but it does make sense. I it feels like a lot of what we've said already before.
Yeah. But it's good, like what you started off with. Like let's take the positive vibes and talk about things people are building and the positive, because it sounds like it's only negativity around this whole topic. But actually, I'm very well capable of parking these emotions and only letting them out at the MA board meetings and see what change I can bring there. Meanwhile, with Huva, it's positive vibes only. Like we have a super nice spirit there. Our Slack is super upbeat. Everything we're doing with MageOs is in good spirits. More and more people joining from different sides. Our friends from MST, Sergey, is also now taking an active role. It's really helpful to get like a extension vendor perspective. We're building that websites for merchants and basically the whole community to explain what Magento does, and Max Cluster is starting to play a bigger role in that as well, content-wise. So it's a German hosting provider. They're helping us with the content and mapping out the sitemap, and so we'll be launching that website soon. And we're in good spirits because. Yeah, we enjoy all the work that we do, and we still have like
Max Cluster. I there was a hosting thread in Slack, and people were talking about different hosting companies, and I wasn't too aware of Max Cluster, but they got
Benno Lippertz.
Yeah, and I didn't realize. I hadn't realized that he was there until they mentioned it, and anyways, I was just impressed by a lot of the feedback that they got. They're kind of like. Top of my they kind of moved to like the top of my list as far as like Magento hosting company, focused on the German
their
market.
Supporters are really good,
but yeah,
but they're the kind of hosting company that if you tell them you get a error in your front end and you tell them what the error is, they will investigate. And if you have like with IntegerNet, they work almost exclusively with Max Cluster. We had some high profile customers with Black Friday stuff and Redis issues at some point with really high traffic, and they would be really helpful in debugging those and profiling and really tweaking the configuration for the best settings. And so they really work with agencies and merchants, which is great. And they're really flexible in the setup because a lot of hosting providers have this unified platform where they just spin up nodes with a pre-installed configuration, and you can tweak it a bit. But I think Max Cluster really has single nodes where you're way more flexible to just configure it any way you want. So you can really tailor it to a merchant's needs.
Yeah, I was impressed with the feedback for them. On the negativity, positivity, man, I keep thinking about this because. I posted like a meme about somebody getting beat up related to posting doing a Magento site or whatever, and it was funny. It was like, and I posted another thing just this morning. Okay, Jacob Winkler has been doing these great Chat GPT prompts for like poems about Magento and Adobe, and I posted one just this morning. So it was a negative post. And I know I've gotten some criticism from people. Don't be so negative, or what do you why would you know? And I've been thinking, and we've talked about this, and I've been thinking a lot about the balance between saying something negative, saying something funny, making a joke at Adobe's expense or whatever, or whoever's expense. And I don't know if it's always so cut and dry that you should always be positive, always be negative, never say anything. Like Adobe, I'm pretty sure by now, based on some things I've heard, that their thing is like, we will not engage in any way with any public criticism. right? So
that's good. That's good.
That's their policy, right? And there are these changes happening behind the scene, and you can kind of see how feedback is being filtered from these rants that are being made. And you kind of see changes that are made. They're kind of slow, whatever. But it's like they have this very clear policy on do not engage. And I think that sort of just makes things kind of worse. I mean, it makes it to where you just want to complain more because they refuse to like say anything. And so, anyways, all that to say that I guess I just don't know whether, like on the association stuff in particular, I'm just so sick of it. But
but the sad thing there is like Adobe is like the galactic empire, you know, like they're doing good, but they're also like they're just not doing what we want them to do, what's good for us, only to a certain degree. And we would really like them to do things differently because that would help us as a community and an ecosystem. And they're big, they can handle some criticism, they don't even care to respond to it. That's fine. The MA is just a group of people that are incapable to make change because they're just too limited in resources. And those are people that spend their free time unpaid to make change, to make Magento great. And of course, there's a lot of, I had a lot of criticism about how it runs, but it's just really difficult because, there's just too many constraints.
I guess what I'm saying
that's
is
where the personal factor, you know.
I think sometimes we in the Magento community just like to make fun of shit. Like we just, you know, there's a situation, you're like, I've given up on anything changing. There was a week there where I was like, I'm going to start a petition. We're going to get signatures. We're going to we're going to really help Adobe clearly understand with a very clear voice and messaging what it is that the community wants for them to focus on. And then I was like, you know, like it, like just fuck, like it's not going to happen. I don't care. It's just not going to happen. And so, but at the same time, I still find myself like, you can't help it. The jokes make themselves. You just have to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it's part of what makes an open source community fun and interesting is that people are rowdy. People are, you know, like to, you know, joke about shit. You know what I mean?
It was so funny. There's this WhatsApp group for Meet Commerce, and you're in it, right? You're just a bit silent. You're just lurking there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm
funny
not lurking. I turn my WhatsApp off because I get too many, like, I hate WhatsApp. I hate WhatsApp groups, which is kind of
anyway.
The problem, so
it's funny because there's some typical characters from the Magento community, current or ex community members that are now in that WhatsApp group, and it immediately became this familiar group of people just playing pranks on or like punning each other. And we had some really fun interactions yesterday, and then someone was like, okay, I'm gonna invite someone new that's unfamiliar with this community. Can you please hold in a little, like, can you make her feel welcome? And like she and she invited her, and then immediately, like, we continued making jokes like to each other. And then Guido Jansen at some point commented like, a lot of newcomers might not understand the humor that's being displayed here. So yeah, it's fun. It makes me look forward to Madrid so much. Just catching up with people and having a laugh. Still, like,
it's kind of a chaotic. It's a chaotic. I think open source communities fundamentally are chaotic by their nature.
But this community is just so much fun. I just genuinely enjoy it so much to be with this community, and it's the one reason. It's what drives me. Like, I won't let this community go to waste. It's bound to orange. It's bound to a hexagon. It's called Magento. and we're going to need to transfer that at some point to a different name. But I think the community and the spirit will remain, and we have a really strong core group of people that are now running taking the lead on MageOs, and it's spreading. Like it rubs off on other people, like the positive energy and the momentum that we're building up. And I'm positive that we can move a lot of that energy, or a lot of that ecosystem into MageOs. And in the end, it's just a name. We'll always refer to it as Magento, and Adobe Legal can write up any document that they want. That's what I was curious about. That's
what I was curious about, if we're going to always refer to it as Magento or not. Which that sort of, because I couldn't quite wrap my head around that, because you kind of need to at some point, but I think you just won't. I think it has to be, it just has to be Magento. It will have to be a thing on its own as well, and people new to the ecosystem might only know it as MageOs at some point. Yeah. But the OG, the people currently in the community will always, I think they will always feel like this is Magento, that it was orphaned, we adopted it, and it's the same baby, different name. Right. Yeah. All right, man. Well, for the next one, we're going to pull up some more. We need extensions of the week. I mean, there's so much that we need to do for the next one, so we'll be sure to do that. We'll do our research.
I'm still curious to hear how your adventure is going.
Ah, yes.
Catch me up.
MageChat. Well, it's going well. It's been, I was in this really super obsessed phase for like 3 months, all day, all night. Got some decent traction, like about 150 members, something like paid members, which was cool. And then now I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not in that like extreme obsessive phase, and I'm just trying to figure out what to focus on, how to figure it out. But it's pretty active in there. People go in and out of being active. Like, you were not active for like a week or two, and I was like, oh no, where's Willem? Then you pop back in a little bit, so people kind of come in and out. But it's pretty cool. I see a lot of stuff happening there, technical conversations and otherwise. And I think it's I'm trying to figure out what to focus on next. Should I work on outreach to get more members, to get it growing a little bit more to where I need it to be financially?
You're sponsoring next week?
Yes, sponsoring the Meet Commerce event, which is cool.
You got your business cards ready for next week?
No business cards. Yeah, it's like an anti-sponsorship.
You got your QR code?
No QR, nothing. It's an anti-sponsorship. No booth, no cards, no nothing. I've never been a big believer in sponsor. I just told Nasu I wanted to support the cause. But he's so good, man. He's so good at doing events. Like we were talking about a pre-party and some different things, and he was like, okay. And then eventually he got us all going to do it the way he wanted us to do it all along, but it felt like you
had something to say in it.
yeah. I was like, and then at the end of it, I was like, damn, he's so good at this. He's so good. But organizing events is so hard. It's just like, it's super complicated. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to,
Yeah, they have so much experience with it, and I like the direction they're taking it to do Meet Commerce. Their plan is to roll it out globally. I'm pretty sure, and that's exciting in itself. I think it's good not to have all of these walled gardens between ecosystems, and as we said before, there's going to be so many friends there, regardless of where they work, what platform they support. There's just too much history between a lot of those people, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
I keep thinking about how energized I felt at New York and then after. And this always happens with events. You have a great time, you feel so energized, right? And then the energy kind of dissipates over time. And it's almost like you feel the bond. Like for me, it's like I'll feel the bonds between different people. It's like a graph. It's like a graph visualization where like I have my bond between you and a bunch of other different people, and you feel like they're getting distant, and then you meet and you're like, oh wow, we're actually close. And in some cases, you're like, oh, we're not, okay, whatever. But 95% of the
So
time, 95% of the time, it's like, oh wow, it's stronger than maybe because I'm anxious or whatever, it's stronger than I worried it was, and then you get excited, and then it dissipates over time, and so I'm excited about Meet Commerce, but like, I guess that's part of what I wanted to do with this community is to keep the sense of connectedness and energy going, and I think it helps, it's just there's something about physical in-person events that are irreplaceable, and it's like I feel like that energy just goes down and it spikes up until the next event. We're actually going to try doing like a little VR meeting in the Slack. Somebody mentioned there's this Oculus VR app called Horizons, and there's some cool features to it.
You got a VR set?
Yeah, I've had one for a little while. I don't use it a ton, but I was doing exercise stuff on it for a while. Which is cool, but it's kind of like you get all sweaty. It's like it gets kind of gross, but it's a good workout. There's like this boxing one and stuff like that, and so we're gonna try that out. And I'm interested to see how that works. I think it'll hopefully be kind of cool. But yeah, it's
I think the lack of events has really hurt the community during COVID. I mean, I'm definitely not the first one to make the observation or to say this, but just going back to doing events has been such an energy boost, and we really need it. Like it creates the bond and the glue between people, and then if you interact with people online, it's like the first time meeting you in person has really built a different understanding of how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
I'm not going there. But it makes interactions different. As soon as you've met someone in person, you can hear their voice while you read their messages, and you can read it more with the right sarcasm in it. So hopefully I'll meet some new people next week. I'm definitely going to meet a couple of our customers that I haven't met in person before. Some Italian, Spanish people. Cool. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Good times. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And I think we're about at the hour mark. And we will hopefully see you in Madrid. If not, I don't even know. I don't even know what you're doing here otherwise.
Thanks for listening. And if your name is Philip, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Thank you.